Yeah, Joyce, you want to tell us what the survey said?
Yeah, let's see. So I think the school calendar is first, and I did just hit the record, so we should be recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, school calendar, 22-23 school calendar. Lots of discussions about the calendar since fall. Lots of feedback from teachers, principals. If you remember, in January, we came to the personnel committee and shared that we wanted to take a look at or get feedback on two models for a calendar. One being the more traditional, and a model that would add additional days off during the school year, with the idea to try to address some of the challenges that we're seeing this year. So if you remember, that was back in January, and we asked the personnel committee at that time, would you support that we survey all of our staff, all of our families, and ask them, which model they preferred, and then basically use that data to bring forward, really a final calendar. So again, just a little background. We did that. We got over 1,500 responses total.
Wow.
The staff, about 65% of the staff and 74% of families supported the more traditional model. Weren't quite ready to switch to something that looks a little different. So based on those results, again, 64% of staff, or 74% of families really supported the more traditional calendar. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what the calendar looks like for 22-23. And then I'll just kind of highlight a few things, and then I'll switch back and take some questions. So let me see if I can share my screen. All right, so now remember, I can't see you right now, but can you see on your screen the 22-23 school?
I can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so just a few highlights. Again, there's a lot on here, so don't expect you to figure this all out, but there are 185.5 teacher days. So that's typically the norm. If you remember this current year, we added 2 days, but this goes back to the traditional 185.5 staff days. You can see that on the bottom here. There are 176 student days. You will see that new teacher week. So all of our new professional faculty, they would report the week of August 15th. We would have teacher in service the week of August 22nd. That's 4 days. Those are the 4 days that all teachers come back for 4 days of in service, getting classrooms ready, all of that. And then the first day of school would be Monday, August 29th. One of the things that we got a lot of positive feedback on was that first day of school being what we call a transition day. So on that first day of school, it would be the 4K kids, kindergarten, first, second, and then the new 6th graders at Wilson and Washington, and then your 9th grade students.
You guys just leave me alone. I'm on a Zoom meeting, okay? I'm on a Zoom meeting. Just leave me alone today, okay?
And then, of course, on that transition day, any other student that's brand new to the district, but got a lot of positive feedback from staff, from our teaching staff, that they really like the idea of that first day of school being a transition day. So again, that's August 29th. Mark would request a waiver from the state again, which we have done this year. So you need to have a waiver from the state that gives you permission to start school before Labor Day.
Yeah.
And again, don't expect you to understand all the colors. There's conferences in here, but there's 5 staff development days during the actual school year. You can see that spring break, is here the 3rd week of March. The last day of school is June 8th. Graduation is Friday, June 9th. So I'm just gonna stop sharing and I guess pause and see what questions you have. So again, it's really a very similar model to what we have this year, and really the more traditional model.
Seemed to me from the mail I got that people just wanted to get back to normal, and enough change. I mean, there were other reasons, of course, but I think that God, just sort of resuming the regular rhythm of things was pretty evident.
Yeah. So any other, the idea with our calendar, technically in a school district, the board does not technically need to approve our school calendar, although historically that's what we've done. So as far as what we would ask or need from the personnel committee would really just be a motion and a second to move forward to the full board, the 22-23 calendar, and then they would take action. We would bring it to the full board, not till on the March 22nd board meeting date. So
Stacy?
Oh, yep.
Yep. Stacy?
Yeah. I know last year we increased the amount of development days. Is that staying the same this year, Joyce?
Yeah, this year there are, I'm just looking at my calendar because I want to be accurate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, there are 5 staff development days this year, potentially 6, depending on the weather makeup day. Mm-hmm. So yes, the calendar for next year reflects 5. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what we did last year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the school calendar 2022-23.
Yeah, recommended to the full board. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, already ready for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. No nays. So it'll be recommended, and
Sure.
the minutes of the meeting will show that we've made that recommendation.
Yeah, and we'll bring it, because it's already Friday and the board meeting is next Tuesday. This will go on the March 22nd board meeting for action.
Okay.
So. All right, then I think, Carrie, if I can talk about the next one as well.
Right. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Kathy had asked that I just provide an update on where we are with our exit surveys. So for our staff that resign, retire, to ask that they do an exit survey. So this as well, there was, if you recall, there was some discussion in fall. I believe it was November, late October, November, that the board took action regarding having an outside vendor do our surveys versus doing them internally. So I have worked with school perceptions. Again, that name is probably familiar to you because we use school perceptions for our staff survey, parent survey. They also do exit surveys. So I worked with school perceptions. Cost is going to be about $2,000 a year. I've met with them. The process is set up. It is now part of our, I guess, offboarding process. So it's really pretty simple. When a staff member resigns or retires, and Tatum, who's our HR generalist, is going through her checklist of, whatever she has to do to offboard, she will enter the person's name and home email into a spreadsheet or a shared spreadsheet with school perceptions. School perceptions then will send out the exit survey to the employee's home email. We talked about, if they don't respond the first time, will it be sent again? And decided that they will send it out or send 2 reminders. So if the employee doesn't initially respond, they will send it out 2 more times. And then the time frame we're going to use is really September through August, meaning, because at some point you want to get the reports, the results, the data, because the majority of our, at least teachers and professional faculty, retire and then resign, starting now through summer, the cutoff will be the end of August. So in mid-September, that's when we will get the results, the data, the summary, from school perceptions. So, and they've just recently started, the process is in place. They have some names already of staff. We went back to January 1st.
Okay.
So surveys are being sent out to anyone that resigned or let us know that they were going to be retiring since January 1st. So that's already in place. Any questions about that?
Yeah. Joyce, so that our contract then with school perceptions is January through January? Is that how
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to. I know that, it's like $1,200 just to administer the survey. And then for the different reports and analysis and data, it's going to be around $2,000, $2,100. So that'll be the cost for a year. I honestly don't know if they're going to bill us now or if they're going to bill us in kind of September, because that August is what we're using for our cutoff, like our yearly cutoff.
Yeah, for a report then.
Excuse me?
So like it'll go through August and then they'll develop the reports.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. And again, the reason I picked, we had to pick something, and I thought I didn't really want to do June or end of June, even end of July, because not often. We still have some teachers that will resign in July and August. So I thought, let's just capture as many of those as we can. So that's why it'll kind of cut off on August 31st. Yeah. And then we'll get the summary of all the surveys that were completed in September.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lisa?
Is this survey going out to everybody or just the teachers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lisa. Initially, or at least when the last couple of years when we were doing it internally, I was sending it just to teachers and professional faculty. With school perceptions, we're going to do everyone because there's no difference in the cost. So whether they send, in the course of a 12-month period, whether they send out 50 exit surveys or 100, the cost is the same. So in working with school perceptions, I said, you know what, let's just send an exit survey, whether it's a teacher, a custodian, an office person, a minister, let's just send it to everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
Joyce, do we get the report directly from the company, or does it go through the administration and then to us?
Yeah, it'll be similar to, I guess I didn't specifically ask, but I've got to believe, Carrie, that no different than the staff and the parent, any surveys that they do, the reports will be sent to, myself, that will, can then be shared with the committee.
Okay.
So I don't think they're going to do it any different. So,
Okay, good.
so yeah, I just wanted to give an update that the process is in place and
What's the name of the company again?
It's School Perceptions.
Okay.
And we've been, oh gosh, when did we started doing staff surveys? 5 or 6 years ago. And then I think parent surveys, gosh, at least 3 years now, maybe 4. And we use School Perceptions for those as well, Carrie. Oh, is that you, Stacy? Go ahead.
Yeah, are we able to, do we have to wait till September, or can we get rolling feedback as they come in?
Yeah, that's a good question. My mind is thinking this. Let me find out, Stacy. Let me Carrie is the name of our contact. Let me find out now I don't know if they would charge, typically, again, it's about $1,200 for them to just administer the surveys.
Okay.
And then when it comes to generating the different reports, you pay so much for that. Now it isn't extremely expensive. So if we said to them, hey, can we get the results in, June, and then again in September, my guess is they could do it. We'd probably just have to pay that extra cost, Stacy, but I can ask.
Okay.
So.
And then the only other question I had is, with what we've been doing, the model we've been doing now, do we know what the top, let's say, 3 reasons of why people are resigning?
Yeah, we do, because we ask. I don't have that. I can get that for you, Stacy.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me right now, but we definitely ask them to check, or indicate why they're leaving. So I can look back, Stacy, and let you know.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Any more? Okay. Thanks, Joyce, for that.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Joyce.
Yep.
Middle school core teachers dual licensing. I'm assuming that some of you got some of the same messages I did, and one of the things I became really aware of is that there's different perceptions about how this program is unfolding, and in pursuing some of the emails I got, I consulted with some specific people that had sent them, and the situation right now is pretty emotional, and it's pretty unclear. The number of teachers that have indicated that they plan to be looking for other jobs pretty immediately or within the next year is pretty disturbing, at least to me. I mean, there's some teachers that are clearly excellent in what they do and have been with the system quite a long time and have been consistent performers of a pretty high level, and they're clearly upset about this. And the other part of this is that I think that part of the problem, certainly part of the emotion is that it's not always been represented to the teachers by the middle school principals that this is a voluntary program. And I think the part of the problem is that these teachers in both, I think the situation in Washington is much more serious than it is at Wilson. Part of the problem is that the principals are meeting individually with teachers, and I think in some ways, in some cases at least, are saying, "Look, you better do this, or you're not going to have a job in 2 years," which pretty much eviscerates the whole notion of voluntarism. I mean, if this is a voluntary adjustment, it's like, well, you don't really kind of present it in that way. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I don't think we can do it as a board. I don't think that any motion, any resolution passed, such as a quote unquote grandfather clause, which is sort of problematic in some ways in a legal way, is gonna fix the problem. I think it's not only a matter of policy to arrange teaching and teachers, but I think there's a real kind of personnel problem here that goes way beyond that and needs to be addressed. And I think, and I've talked to Mark about this, that these teachers shouldn't be met by the people who are their immediate supervisors in a one-on-one situation, but that there's a need for a meeting of all the middle school teachers, core middle school teachers at Wilson, a meeting with the superintendent, a similar meeting at Washington, so that the administration, before moving ahead with any kind of final showdown on this stuff, really is appraised of how people are feeling and thinking and what their objections are and what really needs to be done, I think, in many ways, to retain teachers who we really want to retain. So I'm suggesting that we wait until some of that legwork is done. I don't know about you, but I don't see this as a problem that's reducible to a kind of a quick fix at this point. Far too complicated, far too emotional in ways. And my sense is, and then I'll just talk a little about my own sort of thinking about these kinds of things, is that I guess ultimately the board is sort of involved in whatever kind of resolution that this might require. But that I think in a move like this, part of the problem is, I think since Act 10, and some of you like Stacy may think Act 10 is fine, but what it really has done is it's imposed a kind of a business model on an educational system, and that everything is now sort of, teachers are just employees. Whereas I think the more productive attitude and relationship is that the teachers are really partners in the enterprise of doing good education. And I think that right now they really feel like they're being dictated to by quote unquote executives in this business model, and saying, look, you better do this, or you're going to be out of work. I think that Mark, in his discussions, at least with me, and I think with all of us, there's a lot of concern about teachers expressed in what he's talking about, and that there's job preservation, and there's a real attempt, I think, in this model to improve the education in the middle schools, and improve it in a way that I think would address some of the behavioral problems that are going on. So I think that there's really merit on both sides. And when it really comes down to it, I guess we have to make some decision. But I don't feel like we're ready for that yet. Anybody want to jump in on this?
I do think, Carrie, that the teachers in question do need some degree of reassurance, though, or we're going to see more leave sooner than later. And then it becomes a more immediate problem. So
Yeah, I think
feel
some
as though-
of them are definitely going to leave. Some of them are, definitely going to leave because this model doesn't fit their career plans. But the thing is that I think that honestly, we don't want to create an adversarial thing out of this. We have enough on our plate as it is. I don't think we're ready really as a board to deal with this at this point.
So I feel like it already is an adversarial thing because there's tension between that group of teachers and kind of what's being expected of them. And I guess I feel like I know the majority of those people and who they are and how long they've been here and how valuable they are. And I feel like it is not a good thing for our district to lose that group of people.
I think everybody's on the same board.
It's not best for our kids, but I feel like they need that recognition. They need to know that we will try to do everything we can to maintain their positions. And, I understand that we have declining numbers and that has to be addressed. But again, I think if we can take it on a timely basis with as people do leave naturally, that they are replaced by, we've talked about this several times, by people who come in knowing that requirement will be, that will be asked of them. But those people who have been here for so long and have dedicated their lives to this district and the kids in it, who are exceptional at their jobs and teaching the subject matter that they have been, I don't think it's what's best for kids. I think that, when we're asking a science teacher to start teaching English,
we're not really doing that, are we? We're not asking science teachers to teach English.
It's science and math. It's science and math are
Okay,
related to English and social studies to keep it in the same wheelhouse.
But what you're saying,
science and math are entirely different.
What you're saying, Kathy, I think that everybody's on board with that. I don't think that, in talking with Mark and in talking, and with talking with some of these teachers, I think, everybody's on board with wanting to keep, really good teachers and even really mediocre teachers, I think. This is not a purge that's happening here. The thing is, it's not just enrollment. Enrollment certainly is a factor, and it's a very real factor in this school system. But it's also how you can best meet the needs of the students, the students being taught, and so they're stakeholders in it as well. And I think that the needs and interests of everybody has to be considered in this. And I think that there are possible ways of resolving these problems without like basically booting teachers out of our system. I don't think we can do that. I think this is a pretty much interpersonal and an on the job kind of thing. I really think that there has to be a change in attitude. I think I haven't talked to either of the principals of the middle schools, and that's not sort of within my authority to do that. But I do think they've maybe mishandled some of the the interpersonal things here. And I think that's part of it. I mean, this is people are being asked to make fairly major changes in their professional lives. And I don't think that that ought to be like just sort of like, okay, sit down. I'm behind the desk here, and I'm telling you. And I can't say that that's been the case in every case, but I know from people who have written to me and people who have talked to me that that's some of the way. And the other thing is that these teachers haven't been made aware of the various ways that they can acquire these licenses. I mean, from what I can tell, the teachers, certainly the ones that are upset, have said, we've been told there's only, you take the exam, you study on your own, et cetera, and you handle this by yourself. Well, there's 4 other ways that you can do this, but they haven't been discussed. So I think that there's first of all a fairly pick and shovel job that needs to be done in terms of restoring some kind of trust on this issue. And then I think there has to be ways of clearly presenting what the alternatives are to each sort of proposal that people may come up with. I mean, we moved to a middle school model, and I think that some changes and adjustments are inevitable with that. But I don't think this has been dealt with nearly enough or well enough at this point. Mm-hmm. So, and I think Mark and I don't know about the other administrators, but Mark is certainly willing to take that on. So, I mean, I think that's the step number 1 before we start to try to legislate this problem into a resolution, because I don't think there's any easy way to do that.
And the other thing, just to add, a couple of things. I've only heard really specifically from one of the teachers, and I hope this is not the case. It certainly is not the intention. I say that with all sincerity, and I'm sure I shouldn't speak for Mark, but I know that Mark feels the same way. We have great teachers district wide. I mean, there is no intent for, as a way to get teachers to leave. I mean, that is absolutely 100% has nothing to do with this. But just to add to what Carrie was saying, that, there have been discussions about this really almost a year now. The principals started talking to their teachers about, over the next, so again, a year ago, over the next couple of years, moving toward these 2-person teams, not only because of enrollment, but because of some of the other benefits for students of doing that. Okay. The piece that they've really been able to share with their teachers, through these conversations, the district is working on a plan, for what your options are to get a second license, if the district will help support that. But they haven't really been able to share any of that. So there's been a gap there, but they haven't really been able to share any of that, because really that was just finalized, settled, last month, at the board meeting, when the board did vote, for those teachers that chose to get that second license. Here are the options. Here's what the district will pay. And oh, by the way, if you do get the certification, we're going to give you this one-time stipend. So, that's really, the principals really haven't been able to share the plan, the options, the monetary support, because, it hadn't been finalized yet. So, but I can understand where the teachers feel there's a gap, or what is this going to look like? What do I have to do? Again, hasn't been able to be shared because it hadn't been approved by the board yet. So I just want to add those few pieces. Stacy, you've been patiently waiting, and go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly why I voted against this last meeting, because I knew this is exactly what the sentiment was. And now we've heard from 4 or 5 seasoned teachers, and we continue to not reassure them. We continue, and there may not be a policy, but there needs to be a decisive action or a sentiment to our administration that this is unacceptable and that these teachers will be retained. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 500 times on this board and this administration, that the most important thing to solve discipline, to solve achievement gaps, is to retain and hire high quality teachers. We have 5 of them that have reached out to us saying that this is not something that they support. And we continue to say, okay, well, that's nice, we'll pay you. And that's, you are going to lose these 5 people, and we're doing nothing about it. And I'm not saying that we have to write a policy or whatever, but I think there needs to be a strong message to our administration that we do not support these 4 to 5 people leaving, and that we need to do our best to reassure them that we support them in their current role. And end of story. And we need to find a better way. We need to find a better way that we're not going to do 2-person teams. We're not going to do 3, whatever it needs to be. We need to get creative. We need to let our administration get creative and say, we don't support this. Let's find a better way. We understand the business model. Let's find a better way.
Okay, Kathy?
Yeah, I guess, that we haven't really been explained a whole lot about the advantage of having the 2-person team versus 4-person team. I know the team model has worked pretty well in the middle school, but what is the advantage of 2-person teams? And I guess I'd like to hear kind of a synopsis of what the thinking is about that. And we have to remember, when we're talking about 4 or 5 teachers, it's actually more than that. We've had
it's more than that.
At least 5 talk to us very, as you said, very emotionally, very strong feelings about this. And one of the things we have to remember is that group of people is in middle school. We're not talking about, like, even if they were spread across K through 12, that's significant. But we're talking about our middle school model too. This is an age that's very, I always use the word quirky, but it's a very emotional time too for our students, right? And they need those teachers who have the experience to know how to deal with them. I kind of draw back to some of the things that we've been talking about in our ad hoc behavior, and that Monroe has been a terrific school, and they seem to have fewer behavior issues. Now, granted, we're talking about elementary, but part of what's been pointed out there is that they have teachers in general who are more experienced than in a lot of our other schools. It's kind of like an older community of teachers there. Well, there's a reason that, some of those behaviors aren't happening. We have more experience. We want experienced teachers. We want new teachers to bring things fresh, but we need to keep, again, those people. If we knew that these were people who weren't passionate about their jobs or weren't very good but these are all names that have been around for a long time that have great reputations. And I totally piggyback what Stacy is saying. I hardly have anything to add to that. I totally agree. I feel like we need to do something so that those teachers understand. And I comment to you too, Joyce, is that, you know, it wasn't till January that we kind of gave that stipend or voted. Well, you know, it's because we've been talking about dual licensure. The problem is that the principals started talking about it last year already. Like you said, almost a year. And I don't think it was presented well. And we're dealing with kind of like the backlash of how that was presented. And it's been a long time now that they've been emotionally dealing with that themselves. And here we are almost a year later, finally saying, well, now it's optional, it's voluntary, and we'll give you a stipend. It took a long time. So this has been festering for a while. So this part of why I feel as though there's a need to really address this quickly. And as Stacey
I don't
said,
think, no, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't think quickly. I mean, I think I guess maybe I'm much more deliberative than that. I mean, I think we know there's a problem, okay? And I think if we fire back, you know, not really knowing, I mean, Stacey yourself said, I don't know what the difference is or the benefits of our two houses and versus 4 houses model. I mean, I had no clue about that until a day ago, and I asked about it and found out. I'm sorry. What? So I think, you know, the number one thing is to try to patch up the relationships, so that the teachers are well aware of, you know, what is, first of all, well aware that there's nobody I've talked to in administration that wants to get rid of these long-serving excellent teachers. I mean, there's a high premium on keeping them, and I think that we as a board saying, geez, you know, you've got to keep these people, I don't think we're informing the administration of anything that they're not in agreement on. I think the problem is that the teachers feel they've been somewhat cornered, certainly lately, and didn't really come up. I don't know what the deal is with the speaker.
Kathy, can you mute? It's echoing because of muting.
But the deal is that we had a meeting in January, voted on, you know, compensation for the people who voluntarily do this. The end. I didn't want to go beyond that at that point. And they've fired back saying, "Huh, what do you mean voluntarily wanting to do this? What I mean, they have now had the catalyst that has brought them, you know, to our attention personally. I think there's a need before we do, crash the gates here, for the administration to try to restore some trust, discuss this as mature professionals, and if there's still problems after that, we'll have plenty of time to be involved with them. Kathy.
Okay, so my comment to that is essentially I understand what you're saying, but what I am also saying is that needs to be done immediately. That restoration process has to begin like yesterday. Like we need to do that soon.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Like we can't keep this going. It has been a year. So the time is now, not to be waiting.
Yeah, I think I would guess there's a consensus on that at this point. Is there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of middle ground. It's very clear if we want to retain people, and I know that's a flip from my previous discussion, but you know, now hearing from a variety of folks, I think there needs to be some type of middle ground moving forward. And I think you're right, Kathy, as attrition occurs, that we'll be able to bring in people naturally to be able to fill what is needed moving forward. I would also say, though, there may be a time when we do run into some fiscal issues on this, which is what prompted this in the first place, right? It was, yay, great, class sizes could be considerably smaller, keeping 4, but that's not always fiscally responsible for the district. So at some point, we may need to address that, depending on how things pan out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what we've gotten recently, certainly what I've gotten, I hear that you got, is we've heard one perspective on this, pretty loud and pretty clear what that perspective is, and I think that as Meredith alludes to, there's some real complexities to putting this puzzle together. And I don't think we want to be ham-handed about this. I mean, I think we'll do more damage than we solve. But I do think I agree with Kathy that don't let it boil. Don't let it boil any longer time. Kathy?
Yeah, I guess I'm just going to make more of a formal request to whether it be Mark or Joyce, but could you please at some point present to the board, and I say at some point, but I mean pretty immediate if possible, like what you're thinking about, like with the 2-party system, the House, I should say, not party, so that we understand that more, because, as a board, we should understand that, right? Because otherwise we're kind of like half talking, I don't want to say truth, but with, our knowledge is not completely there. Like, I think we need to understand the thinking behind that more. That may be helpful too. So I'd like to hear more about that.
So I just want to clarify. I had a great conversation yesterday with Carrie and Joyce. I'm fully ready to have some small group meetings for the 7th and 8th grade core teachers, both at Wilson and Washington, and listen to some solutions that they might have, and talk about, where they're coming from. I have not had a conversation with any teacher. So I just want you to understand that no teachers have said to Mark Holzman, talk to me about this, where are we? I'm happy to share with the board the rationale behind pedagogic skills. But what I would tell you is that I don't think that as a board member, you have to know everything, right? You probably don't know the ABC location in elementary school and our system of providing staffing to the high school. So I'm happy to explain those as they come up in scenarios that teachers aren't happy or you're hearing about that. I would also say that I don't feel like our principals had any intention of not supporting the people in their buildings. I know that's their perceptions, and so I'll let them know that they perceive that they're not supporting them. But that is definitely not an intention. They're trying to address what's in front of them as that the district has said, here's how many sections you have, and they have too many teachers who aren't certified to make the sections work. So we can make some adjustments in there and talk to them about what that looks like. But there are many different parameters to the middle school model. And what I would say is that the board approved the model in 2019, and the model is small groups of kids with teachers who are certified. And so there's always going to be some ebbs and flows. I'm happy to adjust and try to make some additional adjustments to that model. But we also have to keep in mind, and this is just, I want you to know, what is best for kids. And right now, what we've talked about, which is important, is what is best for teachers. And sometimes there's a conflict between that. And I see you shaking your head, Kathy, no, but there is sometimes a conflict between what teachers want and what they think is best for kids. And what we're asking people to do is a shift from the middle school model or from the junior high model to the middle school model. And some teachers don't want to make that shift. Now, I'm happy to go have that conversation, but we agreed that we were going to make that shift in 2019. And that's what the middle school model does. We have to hold on to those people, make them feel like they want to be here. So that's my next job, and I will do that. But we're going to have other conflicts, not just in the middle school model, but in other things down the district when we make some changes. And if our thought process is first and foremost, what's best for kids, we will always land in what's right. We just have to keep thinking about that. So when we talk about the middle school model, we're going to talk about what's best for kids. And how do we create small personal relationships? And how do we support that? So I just want to make sure we're thinking through that, because that's a challenge. Having
Yeah,
said
I think
that,
no. Oh,
we
go ahead,
we
Mark.
do
Sorry.
have a joint meeting, so we could pause this meeting and return afterwards. But I know that we have some other board members who are probably waiting on the other link.
Right.
Jump into the joint meeting at 8:45.
All right. Personnel committee. We
I just want to make a comment
Okay.
here, Carrie, quick. Mark, it's not just about the teachers. I mean, we've said multiple times that when a teacher is an expert at teaching a certain area, and then they feel as though they're forced into another area, because this is not this is the situation, right, where people are not happy about being dual licensed. They want to, our math teachers want to keep teaching math because they know math and they know the subject inside and out. Well, those are the teachers that I see as being the best math teachers for our kids. And that's what it ultimately is about. And it's about retaining our best people and the people who know their subject matter best. And as far as the middle school model and explaining it, it's because, first of all, 2019, a lot of us.
Kathy, we have to move. I mean, this isn't new. What you're saying, you've said a number of times. So I think we need to move the finance committee now.
Yeah, it's at 9. But give me one moment.
It's 8:45. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. But just in 2019, when the middle school model was created, a lot of us were not part of the board at that time. So it would be great to hear more about that so we can learn more about that and the thoughts behind it. That was my point.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think that's a good point. Yeah.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Okay.
Okay.
You're gonna
See you on the
have
other side.
you're gonna have to jump on the other link then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll take this up again. I mean, this isn't the end.